everyone. Thank you all for coming. My name is Jennifer Remenchik, and I am a member of the exhibitions team here at the brand and creator and moderator of Art Talks at Brand, an initiative in which contemporary artists from the Glendale and greater Los Angeles area are invited to discuss their work and the issues that surround it, followed by a discussion with myself and a public Q&A. This program is free and open to the public. I would like to take a moment to thank the brand associates for their generous support of this program. Miguel Nelson is a conceptual artist, designer, and developer who has created art and experimental social spaces for over 25 years. His interests have included projects as varied as multi-element immersive art performances to developing urban oases as private event spaces to an ongoing venture dedicated to the revitalization of the Desert Island Country Club in Palm Springs. Now he is focused on a large-scale collaborative art project, the Spirit of Rudy Caballero, in which Nelson invites other credited contemporary artists to create work under the fictional artist's name. This project manifests not only as discrete art objects, but also as pop-ups, exhibitions, and recorded conversations, incorporating many experiential facets in this gesamtkunstwerk?
Gesamtkunstwerk? It's harder to say.
Well, it's like a total artwork, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the total artwork. The Spirit of Rudy Caballero recently presented an exhibition of sketches at Luke Gallery in Mexico City during Zona Maco and is slated for future exhibitions I will let Miguel go further into. So let's welcome Miguel.
Thank you. Is this thing working? Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. So this is a really great opportunity. I'm so happy that Jennifer invited me to do this. I haven't really done a formal discussion on my work in a long time, and it made me realize that I've been working all along because my art practice sort of fused with my lifestyle when I was in graduate school. When I got my MFA in 2002 at CCAC in San Francisco. And I remember, my classmates and my professors asking me what type of artist I was, and I told them I'm a lifestyle artist. It's all about like blurring the lines between your lifestyle and your art practice. And I think I've actually done a pretty good job at that, because sometimes I can't tell whether I'm making art or just having a decent day. It's just like that. So I'm going to start with the work that I made at CCAC. It's now called CCA. They dropped the crafts. For some reason, they were against the word crafts. I thought it was silly. So I made 5 works like this for my MFA thesis, and they were constructed really well with a walnut frame, and it was an aluminum-backed light jet print, which at the time was the highest technology for printing photographs. And there was a ballistic nylon Toomey leather shoulder strap and these rubber bumpers, and the idea was that I could actually carry these and I could get into a taxi cab and go up an elevator and meet with an art dealer or a curator. And so this was like a vehicle for an idea. And the ideas were very elaborate. This first one was called Imaginary Salad Toss, and I'll read it just so you get a gist for it. Build your salad, pay for it by the ounce, and picnic on a sprawling 60-foot square wrestling mat in the front gallery of Mocha's Geffen Contemporary. Picture the magnificent salad these golf carts could toss if they raced down the ramps, meeting spectacularly at the bar. Realize that unlike many other museums, the Geffen has no cafe, let alone a salad bar. So this setup, including bar, beverage cooler, waste receptacles, and cashier stand, is operated by and temporarily relocated from LACMA's cafe. Observe how mindfully LACMA's crew stocks the bar, runs the cash register, and maintains the area. So it's, first of all, it's artificial because it's just a concept, and we're just showing a concept as an art piece in a vehicle. But it's actually a concept that I would love to do someday. And I thought it was very interesting to actually have an art piece serve a function that's missing within an exhibition space. And I thought it would be even more hilarious to borrow that function that works so well from another competing exhibition space and bring it over along with their staff. and also to activate the audience's imagination, because they'd have to consider what would actually happen, even though that thing was never going to happen. But they could build their own sculpture that was edible. I just think there was a lot in it. I still love this piece. But this sort of gets at this thing that exists throughout my practice, in that everything that I work on, it doesn't feel good until it's reflecting not only its site, I mean it's site specific for sure, but also the history, the thought process, the potential of the site, the strategy of that exhibition space. Sometimes it'll even point at the curator or the dealer or the employees. Nobody's safe from the idea. It's trying to like absorb everything, and there are a lot of inside jokes, and just feel like it's very important that a work doesn't really totally stand on its own. That it actually is, to borrow a phrase from Jennifer, it's like a funhouse mirror. It's reflecting the world around it, and it makes itself clear by doing that, because it's the only thing that's actually reflecting so many things in that space. So anyway, what's this? Okay, so this is another one. It was a swimming pool in Venice with a slide and a diving board, and that way everybody that was coming to Venice Biennale during Vernissage could lay out and have a good time and socialize. This was for the Whitney Biennial. There would be other artworks in the gallery, but this sculpture would actually be a path that you could take. And the path itself got so excited about the show that it kind of tried to become a sculpture and a painting at the same time. And I actually presented that to the curator of the Whitney that year, and he kind of liked it. But he said there was only 6 weeks until the show, and they already kind of were booked for it. This is the Tate Turbine Hall, and it's basically repurposing their coat check system, because when you're in London, you got to wear a fabulous coat. And so everybody's coats would be on display in the Turbine Hall, and it was also a margarita bar where they would serve my margarita, which I've been making since I was 16 years old. And you'll see in my other works that alcohol and cocktails come up in a lot of the work. And the part of the reason for that is I think it's kind of interesting as an artist to be able to actually get inside your viewer and alter their perception. And I think that's what all art means to do, but it's kind of fun to do it literally with a cocktail. And they're also like little sculptures too. So the first thing I did outside of graduate school was my first truly collaborative project. And I wasn't thinking about why collaboration at the time. It just felt like a really sweet thing to do, because I was traveling all over the world, going to all these biennials and meeting all the gallerists and curators and seeing the newest museums and the art fairs. And I was taking photos, and I thought, I'm going to just take photos of the outsides of each gallery, and I just think it'd be a nice collection. And then once I had the collection, I was like, it'd be really fun to make my family and a lot of my friends have no idea what I'm up to. Like the art world is just impenetrable. It's just like this weird sort of hermetically sealed thing that the average person knows nothing about. They might see a museum once in a while, but I doubt any of them would have ever stepped into any of these galleries that are so important at the time, or the art fairs. And so I thought this would be a way to kind of connect with my friends and family, to show them what I'm up to and what my dreams are about, and have a conversation with them. So I took the photos back and I traced them on paper, and then I would let a friend choose one, and they would make a watercolor, whether they knew how to watercolor or not. And my buddy Andy actually did a pretty good job. This is the original Gavin Brown's Enterprise, which was a total scene back then. You guys probably weren't even born yet, but in 2002, this was the gallery in New York, and they had a little disco in there with a Saturday Night Fever floor, but it just covered the whole bar like carpet, and it would glow at night, and it was a pretty shady place. And I painted that one myself, because I just had to do that one. White Cube, the original, that's my grandma Rudy's version of White Cube, and that's the original one. So when I moved directly to LA after grad school, and I actually had a previous degree in business, in real estate development, because I was very interested in architecture and design as a child. And I always wanted to be an architect, but I discovered that real estate developers make all the money and don't have to deal with a lot of the nitty-gritty that the architects have to deal with. So I actually know how to do real estate development, even though I rarely do it. And so when I got to LA, I found this old automobile showroom, and I figured out a way to buy it, and I turned it into a big loft. But it quickly became a salon and an event space, and it was a great way to sort of, again, let viewers come inside the sculpture without knowing it. It was kind of insidious, and then engage with whatever's in there. And it's funny, I just realized that my buddy Chris, who's sitting here, on the wall there's a black wall piece that he actually made. And so I was inviting friends to interject works, musicians, videos, sculptures, food. We worked with some of the best chefs in LA, like Nancy Silverton, and we would have these really interesting little soirees. And sometimes there'd be like food fights and performances with food, and also with cocktails. It was always, I just felt like if you're gonna, you got to work with all the senses, and so we kind of did. There's this other one, I don't know, like Johnny and Vinny, before they had all the restaurants, were like these stoner like caterers from Florida, and I made friends with them, and they would always come in and we'd collaborate on food performances. So in this one, they had this huge roast beast, and they chopped it up in the middle of a performance, and they were just tossing the pieces of meat out to people in the audience to eat. And we had these performers that were half naked performing, and it was just kind of funny to see the half naked people in these weird sculptural costumes eating the meat. And we had everything filmed on, at the time, these little HD cameras that probably don't even seem HD anymore. They were like 1080p or something. But we had jib booms, and so the whole apparatus of the performance included the filming devices. So it was very meta and self-reflexive. And a lot of the guests had no idea. They thought they were coming to a dinner party. And it was way more than that. So there was something kind of unexpected about it. And they were really fun. And that was the first space that I built. We did another one where we had an unveiling. I mean, when was the last time you went to an unveiling? You see them in movies all the time. But we thought it'd be funny to have an unveiling as a performance in the middle of the show. Anyway, these are just random shots of crazy stuff that happened. Actually, this one here, so that guy with the sunglasses in the back, that's my cousin Eddie. And he wanted to be a rock star, and he thought he was very talented. And he's my cousin, so I love anything he did. So I liked his music too. Most of my friends didn't, but I had him out, and we made a performance based on our lives and like our fantasies of our lives. And this is just a little trailer. So all the guests are there at the party while this is going on, and they don't even know what it is. There are probably 150 people there, and they paid $100 each to attend. But you can see how the jib boom tracks go right through the space. And we had the dressing rooms right in the middle of the performance also. So everything's kind of on show. He had his hair cut 3 times during the performance. And these are all friends and people that I'd met along the way, and this is a total collaboration between all of us. There were probably like 20 artists involved. Nobody was paid. It cost $10,000 more than we received. But it was so much fun. I had several cousins involved. We made t-shirts. I still have mine. And I always love the photos of the crowd watching the performance, because you see that they're responding to it, that they've like sort of taken this thing in, and they can't help but like kind of they're reflecting it. So how do I get back to this? So anyway, these performances go on and on. I did a banana daiquiri seance. Were you there for that, Chris? Yeah. So this was in a gallery, and I made the finest banana daiquiris I could come up with. I caramelized the sugar, I had the whole vanilla bean, we did organic bananas, the good rums, and but in order for a guest to have a banana daiquiri, they had to slip on a banana peel. So I would throw the banana peel out and they would slip on it, and then I'd give them the banana daiquiri. And it happened at midnight on my birthday, and so it was a seance. And at one point they formed a pyramid of 12 people, and they all slipped on the banana peel at the same time, which was my favorite moment. But I think it just, this idea of making something for your guests to ingest is somehow, for some reason, really important to me. And it's just a theme through my work. And again, this is all buddies that we're collaborating with. Nobody's paid. They're not all necessarily artists. And I did, Andrea Zattel, with her first high desert test sites, or maybe it was the second one, invited me to do something. I said, well, I'd like to make margaritas. And so I stocked my car with enough margarita fixings for 300 margaritas. And I drove the Mercedes to the desert, and I crashed into the desert, so it looked like it was stuck out there. And it was out by the salt mines, and the salt in the margarita glasses was from the salt mines. And as the sun set, we were all having margaritas. It was one of my favorite sculptures ever. It was, and people had such a great time. And again, it's just, I think this also just sort of reflects everything around it in a weird way. It's trying to use what's there. It's something kind of cinematic about it. And at the end of the day, it's just pure fun. You know, you don't even have to think about it as a sculpture. But it definitely was. Leo Castelli, I think, was one of the most amazing art dealers. And I found his original gallery space on the Upper East Side. And lo and behold, there was still a bronze plaque that said Castelli on it. It's not there anymore. Somebody took it. I photographed it and documented it, and I made one just like it. And I pitted the USC graduate school against the UCLA graduate school to see who could curate the best show. And then the winning school, I sent the bronze prize to the director of the program. So this went to Russell Ferguson, who was the director at UCLA at the time. I don't know what he did with it. He's probably like, what the hell is this thing? But he got the Castelli prize. It's the only time we did it. And so this is, I ended up building all these event spaces, and they're all collaborations with friends that are artists and designers and architects. We don't hire interior designers. We just come up with all these crazy things on our own. And they're urban oases. And I really think plants, I think about plants as sculpture too. Everything in here is custom. It's just all just really weird custom cut up stuff. Some of it is from the building. Some of it's made up, but it looks like it was there. Some of it looks like it's from the future. It's just, I think the idea is to confuse the guests so that they don't really know where they are. And I think there's this history to the place that might not even be there. They might think one room is new when it's the oldest room. They might think another room is old when it's the newest room. Like this is, like that credenza is made from shutters from this house that got torn down in the Palisades. And then my buddy Tony made these ceramic bangles for this weird lamp that my buddy Tony, that my other buddy Jose made out of oak. And then I worked on this neon piece with a friend of mine that's a neon artist, and we hung it in front of this round mirror, which is supposed to become a clock. So it's an unfinished collaborative work. It'll probably never be finished. And then there's a painting by my mother in the middle of it too. So it's just all these different artists working together, collaborating. And I think it just makes for a more interesting, less predictable result. These are just these spaces. I'm going to try to jam through so I can get to the main project. So I'd been wanting to paint, just do straight up paintings. I was like, you know, this is too involved. I just want to do a straight up painting. I want to be on the, I want to hear my phone ring and have my friend call and say, what are you doing? And I want to just say, I'm working on a painting. What do you think I'm doing? Just to be a painter. It's just so exotic and sexy. And I would love to just be a painter, but I don't really have the attention span for it, I think. I don't know. So, but I went ahead and I started taking trips and taking photographs. So this was this El Morro in Morro Bay. And I got up early in the morning and I photographed it and got it just right. And then I brought it back and I projected it on a big canvas and I painted it with the projection underneath it. So it looks like I actually know how to make a painting, but I don't. And I love it as a painting. It is a painting. It's all paint. I also did this one. This was in Correas, and that's the sister piece to it. And then that's just one kind of in process. And this was in Sicily. And this is just a little puddle of water in, it's funny because the Apple screensaver has something that looks like this on it. It's just a little puddle of water in Mexico on the beach. But it's a 7-foot canvas. That was in Monument Valley. And then a funny thing happened. I bought, with some friends, I bought a country club called Desert Island. And I'd been making these desert islands. And it was just really weirdly, and this is Desert Island. They call it that because there's a 28-acre lake that wraps around what is an island. So it's like an island in the desert. And there's a golf course. And I got it because I wanted to create a little boutique resort that operated like an art space. So the whole golf course would be like a land art project. And I still own it. I got the entitlements to build a resort, and I'm trying to put that partnership together now. But I see this whole thing as a sculpture and a performative space. There is a ballroom, but every square inch of it has sort of been considered, you know, from an art perspective, and I collaborated with dozens of friends on it. Golf is a really weird sport, but it's very linear. But I like the idea of having these little Easter eggs along the golf course that you would sort of discover along the way and not realize that, you know, was it supposed to be there or not. And there's the desert island on Desert Island. And a bar. And so the idea is we're going to grow agave, and I'm going to learn to make mezcal, and then we're going to have our own little mezcal distillery, and you can only get it if you come to the bar. So it's the ultimate way of getting as much of me into all these random people that I never even meet as possible. It's just a weird thing. I don't know if it'll happen, but it might. So anyway, this leads us to Rudy Caballero. So a year and a half ago, I was at my buddy Cameron's surprise birthday party. Sarah's here, but you weren't there. And we were in the pool, and one of his friends who I hadn't met said, "What do you do?" And I'd never say this. I was like, "I collaborate." She's like, "What do you mean?" "Well, I collaborate. All my best work is collaboration." And she's like, "That's cool." And I'm like, "Yeah, in fact, come to think of it, it'd be interesting if I made a body of work that was about collaboration, and it wasn't my body of work. It was actually the collaborator's body of work, but we would give it a name, and it would be an artist that's imaginary that we're in devotion to." And we started talking about it, and we kind of developed this idea, and it's been about 18 months, but it's really happening now. We had our first show during Zona Maco, and it went really well, and I'm going to talk about that now. So I think I described it all right. So you get it. This is an imaginary artist. And the artist only exists when we're talking about the artist or when we're making work for the artist. That's what brings this artist to life. And the artist's name is Rudy Caballero. That happened to be my grandmother's nickname. It has nothing to do with my grandmother. She was pretty cool, but I just thought she had a great artist name. So this was the show, and there was this sort of mind map on the wall with photographs and conceptual drawings of work that we might be making as Rudy Caballero. And there was a prototype of a sofa, and what we've been doing is recording our conversations, because that's the living memory for Rudy Caballero. And we thought we'd point that out in the show by having a conversation pit that was also a sculpture that our guests could get into and then talk on microphones, and that would be transcribed. And all of these conversations leading up to the show and during the show are now transcribed, and we're building a book out of them, and that's going to be called Volume 1. And all the conversations from now until then, including this one, will be transcribed, and those will go into Volume 2. And the next show will be in Miami during Art Basel. So this just sort of shows the way I call it a mind map. It's actually an Anacapa chart. But you see these things in movies where they're trying to solve a crime, or it's like a serial murderer or whatever. They have to figure this stuff out, right? Well, we're trying to figure out who Rudy Caballero is. It's just sort of stretched around the room, implicating the whole space. And I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to read, but so there are different categories of work. One is fountains of youth, and the first fountain of youth we're making is it's a pile of neon, and it might be hieroglyphs or letters or words or just abstract. We're not sure yet. It might be multiple colors. And on the pile of neon, there's going to be a bowl, a glass bowl, but it'll actually be cast glass, and it's going to be a helmet. So it's something that could be worn, but it's flipped upside down, and it becomes a punch bowl lamp for the collector. And during the gallery show, it'll be filled with alcohol, not to drink, but to anoint yourself with. And that's the Fountain of Youth concept, and it'll be a series. And not necessarily, this one's between me and my buddy Frohawk, but we might, the next one might be between two other artists that aren't either of us. It doesn't have to be me in it. But right now I'm in most of them because I'm spearheading the project. Rudy Caballero is actually an LLC and has legal representation and a business manager already, but we've never even finished a work for sale. So we're just like, it's all part of Rudy. So this was, the alphabetical order isn't working on this. It's okay. I had them in a good order. It's fine. So vehicles and road trips is another category, and the idea is that we'll make a vehicle, and then we'll use the vehicle to go on a road trip, and while we're on the road trip, we'll discover things along the way, and those will actually be sculptures that are going to be a part of the show. And then we'll also have a costume that the only person you ever see in the video is wearing the costume, but it's different people wearing the same costume, and you can kind of tell that this is the character, but for some reason the character is possessed by different people, or vice versa. So we're going to do a Baja Bug and do the Baja 1000. We're also doing an airplane that travels back and forth between one of the Rudy's resorts and Mexico City. And there's also a spaceship, but we're not going to fly in the spaceship. It's going to be a little one because it's for Rudy, not for us. And fortunately, Rudy's super tiny, so we don't have to build a very big spaceship. Oh, I see what's happening. So, okay, so the sofa has all these configurations for conversations. And I like this one because it's like a series of tete-a-tetes. But it's going to be, I think the sofa's going to get more and more refined. This one was just made out of foam rubber. But the next one, for the next show, is going to be articulated better, and it's going to have standing seams, and it's going to be canvas, and we're going to paint the canvas. So it'll be like a painting sculpture sofa pit. And eventually it'll be leather, and it'll be really refined, because I think it's an excellent design. It's a design that my friend Julia came up with, who's another Rudy. And there's no sofa design like this that I can find anywhere, even back in the 60s. So this is just showing there's mind melts. So the idea is that we're using the form of a brain, but we're pouring different things into it to see what they do. Like, what's the chocolate pudding brain do, and what's a concrete brain do, and then we'll just dump it out and see. And it might just be a photographic project because it's just not really designed to last. But some of them might last, and we might use those. I don't know, but it's just this. It's just an excuse to make a mess, I guess. And then there's also with the vehicles, there's just different drawings and diagrams here for different spaceships and cars and whatnot. These are sofa pit concepts. I don't know if you're familiar with the Memphis Design Group, but it was a group of Italians in the 70s that Peter Sotsas and these other, and they did very postmodern furniture design, which at the time maybe was something you wouldn't be interested in, but it's kind of over time grown on me. And this is the group here, and they built a sofa pit, but it was more like a boxing ring with tatami mats, and that's all of them in it. And I just feel like that's so Rudy Caballero right there, because they're all collaborating and they're enjoying their piece and they're having fun. They're kind of like testing the boundaries of what design is. And then with the books, so the books that we're going to make, we have photographs of screenplays. And we like the idea that, a screenplay is like a living document because it has binding posts because you're constantly taking a page out, putting a new page in, or adding pages to it. And it gets all dog-eared and thumb-printed, and there's writing on it and highlights. And that's the way our books are going to be. We're going to pass them around the Rudies, and we're going to highlight and study them and use them to help propel the work more. And then that'll be a collectible object in and of itself. So there might only be 3 volume ones, or maybe just one. Self-portraits is another concept, and we think that's hilarious because how can Rudy make a self-portrait? But the idea is it's going to be a little bit like an exquisite corpse. So we'll get 3 people, they don't have to be painters, and 3 canvases, and we'll each go up to one canvas and work with a timer, I guess, and then we'll switch canvases and switch, and then end a session and maybe do 3 sessions. And at the end of the 3rd session, the 3 paintings will be done. And none of us will have any idea what they were going to look like in advance, but we would have been collaborating because we're sort of just riffing off of whatever's been done in the painting already. And we can have an open conversation also. And I think it'd be interesting if it is a self-portrait, it'd be interesting if it was in the round. So the first painting was like from this angle on my head. Second painting was from the back of my head, and the third one was from this side. And so maybe we would actually try to do that. And as a viewer, you would have no idea. I keep thinking about it. I don't think it's something I've seen before. And then there's also this concept of mirrors. And Jennifer and I actually developed this together. She actually had a painting called Mirror, but it was just gray. And I thought it was hilarious because it was just like a mirror that wasn't reflecting anything and wasn't actually reflective, but it looked like a mirror. And I thought, well, it'd be so funny if we actually made a painting that reflected one of the sculptures in the show. It's a really nice feedback loop. And Jennifer thought it'd be cool if it was distorted like a funhouse mirror. And it'll just be funny when we finally do it because there's going to be this sculpture and this painting that kind of looks like it's trying to be the sculpture, but if we're really successful, it'll also look like the sculpture is maybe trying to be the painting. And I just like the idea of yearning to be something that you're not, or yearning to be something more, and also transformation. And I think that particular piece really gets at that. And then there's mannequins and outfits, which is just a 2-part sculpture. The part that can stand on the floor and the part that can get on the thing standing on the floor. That's it. So I don't think it'll necessarily be anthropomorphic or even look like clothing, but it'll be a 2-part sculpture. And I think the idea is that almost like Garanimals, like the Garanimals from JCPenney's in the 70s. I don't know why anybody would know what that was. Like the collector could choose this outfit and that mannequin and take them home, and they can put that outfit on the mannequin however they want. Or they could actually collect all the outfits and just put all of them on that one mannequin, or just get a mannequin without an outfit. We don't care. They're not meant to go together, which I think is a really weird concept, and it might not work at all, but I think it'd be fun to try. And then costumes. So the idea with the costumes is that the costume is a sculpture, and there'll be instructions, like a silhouette, instructions for performance that you can do when you're in the costume. So when you get in the costume and you try this performance, Rudy's channeling you. And so Rudy's in you at this moment. And so as a collector, you can have that. And that can be just for you. And it gives us this opportunity to make costume after costume after costume, which would be so much fun. And they don't have to function or fit. It could just be a scarf, or it could be a hat, or it could be a full-on outfit. I really like caftans. But I think it's just a really great category of work. And because I think it's perfect because Rudy doesn't have a body. So we're giving Rudy a body. And Rudy can't see, and we're working with mirrors, and there's also fragrances, fans and umbrellas, jewelry. We want to cast our fingers and then make jewelry out of our fingers. So if two of you were collaborating on a piece, we'd cast all your fingers, and then you'd assemble them in a certain way, and maybe just as a sculpture, or as a chain necklace, or maybe one finger would wrap another around another like a ring. Like the possibilities are endless. Like you do this with a choker, or like that, or it could be a tiara. I don't know. There's so many things. And then we also think it'd be funny if some of the fingers had a collaboration from a couple of other artists for a ring. So some of the fingers could have rings on them. And they could be with precious metals and precious jewels. It's kind of limitless. And then there's a fragrance. And so the fragrance is, Cameron actually came up with this idea, is going to be the smell of the Sonoran Desert when it rains. And I grew up in the Sonoran Desert, and so did my grandma Rudy. And everybody in Arizona is nostalgic for this fragrance because it's so incredible. I don't know anybody that doesn't like this fragrance. And we found a research paper, and there are like 44 different notes in it because it happens during the summer. There's these plants that bloom. There's a little fungus that gets in the petrichor. There are these beetles. There are these other plants that bloom. And the monsoons come up from Mexico. And we want to make this fragrance, but we don't really want to make it for distribution. We want to make it it's like a landscape as a sculpture, is the way Cameron says it. So we'll make a bottle, that's another collaboration, and it's big enough, it's about 3.5 liters. It's big enough so that if you smelled it once a day, it would last 100 years. And so it's a century bottle. And then we'll do maybe 5 other bottles that are decade bottles, a little bit smaller. And it's interesting because as the collector, you get to control who gets to smell this fragrance. And I don't know how obsessed you are with it, but every time you smell it, it depletes the sculpture. So depending on how much you care about the value, you might smell it less and keep it sealed. I don't know. Like if a museum would allow it, it opens up all these questions. But we already have ideas for the next fragrances too. So there's going to be the streets of London while it's raining, which I can almost smell just by saying it. I don't think they're going to all be related to rain, but I could see them being related to the elements. And then there'll be recipes also, things to make. Drinks, jalapeno poppers, pizzas, there'll be chocolates. There'll definitely be lots of recipes. And you can see we're just trying to connect everything in the show together. And the gallery did a nice job translating Rudy into Spanish because it was in Mexico. That's it. Was that too long? We okay? Yeah?
Thank you for your presentation.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Okay, so I wanted to start off by something you said kind of early on, which was, I feel like we've all become really accustomed to the concept of a lifestyle, everything's a lifestyle brand, or curate your life. I don't even know if that's as hot now as it felt like it was a few years ago, but I felt like everything was kind of going into curating your lifestyle influencers. But it feels like when you were talking to like your teachers or professors about this, that was not really in the cultural consciousness in the same kind of way. So I was wondering if you got much resistance to like that concept from like people that you described it to.
I think some people loved it and some people didn't love it. They were looking for more of a studio practice artist, I think. But there were already plenty of artists that were production artists at the time. And there were certainly a handful, and I knew about them because that's what I was interested in, artists that were doing things that had a little bit more of a lifestyle aspect to it. I think there was an institutional critique to it also.
Right.
Because I feel like a lot of, and in any industry, part of the reason you do it is because you like the crowd. You can't, not all filmmakers, but I think there are a lot of filmmakers that really enjoy the filmmaking crowd.
Right.
Not just film.
Yeah.
They like the scene. They like to party with actors and cinematographers and musicians, and it's just, they like to live in Hollywood, and they like to be a part of that. And I see the art world as the same thing. Right. Except with the art world, nobody likes to talk about that. Like somehow it's too pure to talk about how fun it is. And there are probably plenty of hermetic artists that don't actually like it at all. But that's their shtick, is hating the thing they do. There's like this whole shtick with the art world. And I kind of felt like it wasn't fair to not be honest about it. So I was kind of wide-eyed, but at the same time I was aware that there was a critique there, and that it was unorthodox to be overtly wide-eyed.
Yeah, and I also think it can be a little unorthodox to talk about fun in the art world. I feel like sometimes people are a little resistant to the idea of fun because the art world is often supposed to be serious. I remember I was even talking to someone about how I like the idea of play, and I guess that kind of fit into their research, the concept of play. But then when I used the word fun, she was like, "Oh, well, I don't like fun." You know what I like, that she could talk about play because X, Y, or Z theoretical cultural philosopher had talked about the important. You know what? The coding of words can be really specific, so it can sometimes be almost a little taboo to have something just be a simple thing. Oh, it's really fun. Yeah,
well, often if you do hear that, there's a lot more to it, and the artist is sort of escaping the conversation. They're like, oh, there's no reason, or whatever. They pretend like it's not a rebus when it's clearly a rebus. It's there's a puzzle to be solved here, and they act like it. I don't know. I'm just suspicious of any limitation, in an art practice. It just seems like there's potentially a convenience there, or there's a fear, or but there's not a good reason. There's not a good reason. It's just the artist is exhausted. They just don't want to do anything new. They're obsessed with this thing and it's I don't know. I'm a dilettante. I just like to do a lot of different things. I don't like to be good at anything. I like to have a steep learning curve, and then once it starts to plateau, I just don't do it. It's not.
Well, it's funny. This leads into something else I was thinking about, because I know that about you, that you kind of like to jump from thing to thing and learn a lot. It seems like you're very invested in the learning process of things. That's where you generate a lot of fun for yourself. But also your sketches and paintings are pretty good. I was wondering if that was your first inlet into the art world, because a lot of people it's when they're kids, we sketch or draw and we're good at it, and so people are like, yay, art. I don't know, what was your sort of initial entryway? Especially if you weren't born into a family that was already doing it a bunch.
My mother is a decent artist, but she never practiced. She was a teller at the bank and worked her way up to be like vice president, or and I had a family of builders. They were building homes, and my great-grandfather did wrought iron sculpture, but I don't think it really came out of that so much. I think my desire to be an artist came out of going to museums and galleries and feeling like there were these temples and with these exotic objects in them, and I just wanted to somehow be a part of that. I just felt like it was this parallel universe, and it was so exotic. And I still feel that way. And I'm far more jaded now than I was then. I still love it, even like an art fair, which so many artists hate art fairs. I think they're just great, and all the parties that surround them, and what happens, and the way that the galleries have their best shows at that time, and even the museums will kind of get involved. Everybody gets involved. The city kind of comes to life because of an art fair. And I think it's really interesting. And I think that's really why. It wasn't so much about what I was going to contribute to it in a formal way. It was more about just participating in it in general and being around it. And I thought, well, I should just try making things and selling them. And that never really worked out that well for me, but luckily I had other skills that paid my bills, and I could sort of wrap my art practice into that.
So on a like practical level, what are some of your favorite and least favorite things about collaborating so much? Because you collaborate a lot in different realms, I would imagine. Like, yeah, most favorite, least favorite things.
It really depends on the person that I'm collaborating with, the people I'm collaborating with. One thing that's difficult is if they're too glued to their signature of what they do. And I try to coax an impartial collaboration. Sometimes it's different, like a commission's a commission.
Right.
Collaboration is, we're supposed to come up with something that neither of us would have done otherwise.
Right.
And sometimes it's too possessive, or they don't feel like it's important enough because it's not just them. And that makes it a little bit difficult. But what I really love is when we actually come up with something and we're both excited about it. And we finish it and we're just like, now what are we gonna make? It's such a great dialogue. It's such a great way to get to know somebody, and for them to learn about you and what your real motivations are. And I just, when I meet somebody interesting, I find out what they like to do, and I'm like, oh, I like that. I want to see you do that, or can I work on that with you, or maybe what if we did this? And it's like if you go to play a game, I don't like to read the instructions first. I just like to play the game. Let's just play it and figure it out. It's a little bit of that for me, but I don't think everybody's like that. A lot of people are very protective. They don't want to engage their skills with somebody they barely know. But it's a form of playing. Collaboration is like playing.
Well, I guess it also, when I hear about how many different things you do and how much of your time is spent learning, I think that probably in some ways, one of the things that I feel is like a little tired. So how do you keep yourself energetically like engaged? Like, how do you keep your energy up if you're constantly like on that learning curve? Because that can be a lot, you know, developing projects, and because they're ambitious projects.
Yeah, I think, I don't know how I keep my energy up. I am energetic. I think if I'm doing something I'm excited about, that's pure energy. I'm excited about it, it's pure energy. And when the day ends, I sleep really well. What's not energizing is when I have to wait. Like there's this thing, but there's nothing I can do this week.
Well, I would imagine that would come up a lot with the more architectural components or building components, because you're literally on other people's schedules sometimes.
Yeah. Well, this Fountain of Youth, I'd like to build it right now, but my buddy that I'm doing it with is very busy for the next month, and it's going to cost something, and I've got that big project in the desert, so financially I don't know if I'm ready to pull the trigger on that, because it's going to be like a $6,000 thing. And so I got all these excuses that prevent me from just going out and doing it.
Right.
And that's frustrating.
Right.
But that's just part of doing complicated stuff that you've never done before.
Right.
Like if I was just doing drawings, which is really the easiest thing to do, you just do a drawing. I could do one every day, but I'm not compelled to. It's
right.
like it doesn't get me excited. If I need to do a drawing, I can get excited about it. But if I don't actually need to do one, I'm just doing it to do it, like, I'd rather shop online.
Okay, well, you may have already kind of answered this, because I do feel like part of it really just boils down to like your personality or how you engage with the world. But the last question I wanted to ask you was about the fact that because your work, and a lot of the components of your work could be read in so many different ways. You know, you could look at it like as an event space, architecturally, as an artwork. Like, I'm sure that in your practice of making these things, you know, you talked a little bit about liking the scene. I feel like a lot of art is like, what kind of conversations are you going to have? And do you like the conversations that come out of this work, right? So
Yeah.
I would imagine that like you end up with a lot of very different conversations when people are engaging with you about the work, because it can be viewed in so many different ways. A, is that true? And B, if so, like, how do you keep yourself like open and flexible enough to kind of see these objects a little bit the way other people might be seeing them, which would be, I would imagine, different based on the person seeing them.
Yeah, they're widely open to interpretation.
Right.
And there's a lot of different conversations that come out of it. And it
Right.
doesn't matter how informed or misinformed the person is, I think it's all valid, you know. And
Right, and I would imagine you would, because I feel like that's part of it for you, is that all these different things are interesting. So, but I would just imagine that it's like you've got to kind of keep yourself really flexible to be able to engage this person where they're at, and then this person where they're at, all in sort of around one work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like to say I have a wide stance, like I'm open to what's the phrase that people keep saying now? It's like you need to have high standards and low expectations,
Okay.
which doesn't make any sense to me. I just say you just have to have a wide stance. Like you got to be able to like kind of accept anything that happens in like a constructive, positive, delightful way, if you can. And those things that are really hard to accept, that's where I kind of drill into it even more. Like there must be something I can like about this.
That also sounds like radical acceptance. That was a phrase that was really popular for a while. Radical acceptance.
Radical acceptance.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm becoming more flexible.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to think that, not like physically I'm not, I need to do more yoga, but mentally I think I'm far more flexible now than I was 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's good. I think on that we could maybe open it up to a couple of questions from all of you. Does anyone have anything they're curious about?
Yeah. So Miguel and I go way back stuff, so it might be kind of obvious, but I'm just curious about the relationships that you have drawn upon in your collaborations. I know that you and I, like, we've taken on collaboration ideas for a long time, and I've been one of those resistant people, like really stuck in my like precious ways. And how do those relationships flourish, or how do they go down, or how are they difficult, you know? And how do you engage with others to really sort of coalesce into something new? I mean, because it seems like it could be a very difficult sort of partnership, and you also have a way of pushing forward or propelling a project just by your will. You know, you have a sort of a magic about you that just sort of helps the whole thing just go forward. And so, do you find yourself dependent on that part of you? And are other people usually kind of hesitant or sort of like pushing them beyond their boundaries?
I'd say just about everybody is a little bit hesitant, and it can be a little tense. And I've learned that the softer I am, and the better I choose my words, and if I kind of like see my reaction before I react, that it's not that hard to guide the conversation in a playful, kind of constructive way, and it's easier and easier to get somewhere with someone. And it requires the radical acceptance to a certain extent. And
I think the magic in what you do, though, is you're able to, the socialization you have between other people, like you're able to sort of interlock with folks really easily. And so
Not everyone.
No, not everyone. Yeah,
I
but
do think
a lot
of
of people.
Yeah, I do think of all of it as sort of a social sculpture. Like
Yeah.
it really,
And you've done that throughout for decades.
yeah, it implicates the viewer and, the neighbors and, just, it's like a snowball. It's just sort of, and Rudy's like the perfect example of that because we all call each other Rudy. We're all Rudies when we're working on it. You're Rudies tonight because you're just here thinking about this stuff. And it'll be interesting to see how long the list of Rudies is after a few years. But and it doesn't mean that you're always Rudy. It just means you're like nodes in a network, and that it's not really a collective.
As an audience, as Rudy's.
Rudy is a we, not a he or a she or they. Rudy's a we. Yeah. We. Yeah.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
So maybe I'll ask two, but I have more. First question could be super short, but how do you fund your projects, like especially your bigger projects, like that island?
I got investors together and I got a bridge loan. It was a lot of financing. With some of the other ones, I did SBA 504 loans, which is a good way to buy a building. And others I just begged, borrowed, and stealed, convinced my friends to put 25 grand on their credit card and let me borrow it for 6 months. And just, yeah, really, if you want to get something done, you got to figure out how. The Rudy project right now, I'm funding it, but it's meant to have economics and be sold. We're making collectible artworks, and we're going to try to find good representation. And one of the Rudies is a guy named Magnus Resch, and he's a Yale professor of economics, and he teaches the economics of the art world to the MFAs and the MBAs. And Yale's one of the best art programs in the world. And he's on the advisory board for Rudy, and he said that the best way for Rudy to establish economics early on is to collaborate with artists that have the strongest art careers, because the reputation of the network explodes, because if they're willing to work with Rudy, that means Rudy must have some sort of integrity or value or interest. And then you get the eyes of their collectors and their curators and their dealers, and so forth and so on. So part of the thrust right now is to actually meet and discuss these projects with either dealer reps of those artists or those artists directly. And it's an overt part of the process. It's not a secret, So Rudy will collaborate with anybody, somebody that's never made art in their life or somebody that's one of the most famous artists in the world, anywhere in between. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be a Rudy piece unless both collaborators are thrilled to do it and willing to put Rudy's name on it. Because the work is signed by Rudy. And then we as ideators and fabricators and laborers get assigned credit within the credits to the work. But the work is actually Rudy's. Yeah.
Thank you for that. My next question is, I have a background in game design, and I noticed a lot of the work that you do kind of fits into that world. Like, have you ever thought about like your relationship with your work and games, like the idea of games?
I love games too, and when my son was really small, we had a whole collection of board games, and I think it's really fun. Yeah, no, I'd like that. There's one of the Rudy projects is we're casting our fingers into different shapes, and they're meant to be tools. I mean, it's a little bit sexual, but there could also be a game that you could play with the fingers, and I'm not really sure where that's going to go. But that's the first sort of game-like thing that's in potential collaboration. If you want to talk to me about games, I'm happy to hear your ideas if you wanted to do a collaboration to make a Rudy game. Yeah.
Always recruiting. Do we have one more? I think we have time for one more.
Well, I just thought about, what about virtual spaces, like the online games and spaces, and creating an avatar of some sort that Rudy might sort of embody, and how does AI sort of play into some of this, if at all?
Well,
Like an element?
one of the Rudies brought this up, and she said that Rudy's sort of like a slow-moving, insidious analog AI.
Oh, right.
Very slow-moving compared to normal AI, because all these different minds are coming together over time. We're just collecting minds and making things. I love the idea of a virtual game. Yeah, I think that'd be interesting.
Before it was like analog, it's like a very analog.
Yeah, but just because it's analog doesn't mean you can't use computers.
Okay.
I think it's especially if it's a form of communication and conversation. I could see that, but I don't know. I mean, it's again, three Rudys can get together and make something. I don't need to be one of them. Like maybe we should have like a curatorial board within us that allows us to decide if that should be made or that should be made. But
Is there like a statement of do's and don'ts,
the only rule so far is that in order for it to be a Rudy piece, at least 2 people need to collaborate on it impartially. That's it. But there probably should be more.
And how do you choose those people?
Well, right now I've just been like asking people, and it's like if we're actually excited enough to do it, then we're probably going to do it. But some people aren't really that excited, and you can only pull teeth for so long, so that piece just ends up being a diagram or a drawing, and it's fine. Like some of the best dreams are the unrealized ones. And that's, I guess, another rule is when we're coming up with an idea, it doesn't need to be practical. It's okay to have ideas that we'll never do, because it leads to somewhere. It's like all the tech that came out of the moon shot, even though we don't really need to go to the moon to think of everything we invented as a result of it. Yeah.
Are you transcribing your voices right now to be part of the Rudy?
This is all recorded, so I can transcribe it.
But it's not being live, like dialogue?
No. It's so complicated to get that to work, to have it single out people. We'd have to all have microphones. But because we have the recording, I can just translate it when I get the video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
In fact, whatever we're recording in it maybe already,
I didn't know what those high-tech blue things were under the power.
that's just the microphone.
They look like extra fancy.
Oh, yeah. Well, we record all of our art talks. They're available on our YouTube channel, like the Glendale Library Arts and Cultures YouTube channel.
Can I ask a question about your process?
Sure.
It seems like, your work is sort of an extension of the senses, with the perfume, the smells, and the taste, trying to feed people, or conversations and listening. What's behind that, to kind of delve more than just your traditional artists and sight, that's it?
I like it when all the senses you have synesthesia. Like I think when you go into an artist studio and you can smell the oil paints, it just makes the paintings better somehow. You just want to smell them, and then the way the light comes into the room, and maybe the acoustics, and sometimes there's music playing, and I feel like when you remove all of that from the painting and you just see the painting in a white box, like even though it's a great painting, it's way more interesting to be feeling all these other things that went with it. So I think that my favorite installations are ones that involve more than just visual. And then with Rudy, I think it's a pun, because Rudy doesn't have any senses. Rudy doesn't exist, so let's give our senses to Rudy. Let's put our fingers into it and make fragrances and make food and drink and music and film. Just put it all in there.
It is almost like creating a spirit, like, you
Yeah.
call upon a spirit, but in this sense, rather than calling upon a spirit that is somewhere else and then comes to you, it's like literally making it into being.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not literally, but literally and metaphorically.
Well, in the end, I mean, any artist, after they're dead, all that exists to them are the memories of them and the work. And there might be a video of them, but that's sort of just a version of a memory. And so Rudy's no different, except Rudy could live forever or not live forever. Because
Never born, never dies.
Rudy could be the only artist that continues to make work for 500 years.
Okay, well, on that very meta note, I think that we will call it a night. Thank you all so much for coming. And feel free to grab some more refreshments on the way out. We got them for you.